My name is Aaron. Now, if you follow our channel, I'm Aaron from Aaron and Jessica. Now, this is a little different content and than what we normally do. Um, I know I will probably end up putting this or converting my personal YouTube channel to this. Kind of, sort of going to be a podcast, but it's going to be a little different in the fact that I'm kind of going to choose the topics tonight that we're going to talk about, but I will leave it to you to make comments about things that you would like me to talk about next time. And if I don't get any kind of comments, then I'll pick some more topics. We're kind of just going to be doing a little bit of um, bouncing back and forth. And now, what I will give a disclaimer from the get go. Uh, Although this will have political content, I don't land on either side of the aisle. Um, I describe myself as a constitutionalist. Now, what that means to me is that the United States Constitution was written and it is our governing document. Now, sometimes the Democrats get it right, sometimes the Republicans get it right. But what I'm focused on is what the Constitution says and what's right and what's wrong following that Constitution. Now, our country is being divided by many, many different things, um, by the political parties that are involved in all of this. Um, and both sides have their own news or reporting agencies. You can't really call them news. I'm just going to be honest with you. You can't call them a news agency. They're more a reporting agency for either the Democrats or Republicans. Both sides use scare tactics. Um, both sides. Republicans use, oh, if we don't do this, or because the Democrats have done this, this is what's going to happen, and tries to get you worked up and scared. And the Democrats do the same thing. Well, because the Republicans did this, then that means that if you're a minority, then you're going to be um, abused. And I don't, neither side is right. I don't fall for fear tactics, period. Um, what I do, and people ask me this all the time because I don't watch a lot of news programs. I listen to podcasts and I listen to podcasts of people that I don't necessarily agree with politically. I listen to podcasts on both sides of the aisle that I don't agree with because there are some people that are way out there on both sides. Um, and then I listen to people that try to interpret what's going on, but they still do it in a way that um, tends to lead to fear or anger. And neither one of those are a way to properly handle things. Okay. Um, so let me kind of explain a few things. Okay. The Constitution was set up with a three co-equal, okay, three equal branches of the government. Okay. You got the executive branch, you have the legislative branch, and then you have the judicial branch. Those are the terms used in the Constitution. Okay, so the judicial branch, let's just stick with that one. Their entire goal, what they're supposed to do, and they fail miserably both ways. The judicial branch is only, only to interpret the law and give the interpretation of that law. Okay. So let me give you an example. And I know this is a hot topic with a lot of people, and I'm not coming in on either side. Okay. I have my own views of it, and I'm going to try to keep my views out of it. I mainly want to stick with facts according to the Constitution. Okay. Roe v. Wade. I know that's a hot one that legalized abortion. Okay. Now, there was never a law passed by Congress for abortion. Never. Unless I have missed it, there has never been a law passed by Congress to legalize abortion. What the court did is they took an argument between two parties, the female and the male in this relationship, that one wanted to keep the baby and one did not. One wanted the right to be able to end the child's life. The other one wanted to keep it, and so they went to court over it. There was never a law passed by Congress prior to this decision by the Supreme Court in favor of Roe. Okay. Now, because of that decision, everybody, including Republicans and Democrats, both sides of the aisle, in this entire United States, said that that was now legal. Okay. But what happened in that case was that the Supreme Court wrote law. That's not legal. That's unconstitutional from the get go. Okay. They cannot write law. It's unconstitutional. Should have never come to that. Never. And again, I'm not going to say that abortion is right or wrong. That's not my place. I have, like I said, I have my own personal feelings on that, but that's my feelings. Um, but it should have never come to that. Okay. And then when they overturned it a couple years ago, they overturned their own law that should have never been a law to start with. Okay. Because the judicial branch, according to the Constitution, is only to interpret law that is passed by the legislative branch. That's both houses of Congress. Okay, that's the House and the Senate. And then signed into law by the president. Now, there's the veto power and all this stuff, and we can talk about all that, and we can and we will at some point. But we're not talking about it right now. I can go back to that stuff because that's really fascinating. I could give a good law course um, on the Constitution. It's a lot of fun when you really sit down and discuss it and think about it. Okay, so that's one example of the courts stepping out of their place and the rest of the country saying, "Oh, that's a law." Okay, because there was no law. They did not interpret a law. They made a law. It was illegal from the get go. It should have been stomped on the ground and gotten rid of immediately. Okay. Um, and it was. I want to say it was in the 70s, I believe 60s or 70s. So we've had all these presidents since then that didn't have the gumption to stand up and say this is illegal from the get go. Okay. Um, there was no legal precedent for it. There was no law. Okay. Um, okay. So now we've dealt with the judicial branch. Now what we find now is that there are what they call activist judges, illegal. Okay, and what these judges do is they take their personal opinion, their personal bias, and they say this is what this means, and that's not it. Okay, you have to look at the law. You have to look at how it was written, the intent of the law, and then you have to interpret that law. Okay, that's the judicial branch of the government. Then we go to the legislative branch. Now, the legislative branch, they oversee like the budget, they write and pass laws. Now, if a law, if a bill, because it's not a law until it's signed by the president. So if a bill is originated in the House, okay, the House of Representatives, if it is originates in the House and it passes the House, then it goes to the Senate. Now, the Senate has to vote, and they don't. That's where this whole mess has come about, okay? Because we have allowed these branches to get out of control and a lot of that comes from the ignorance of us, okay? Because we control these people. They work for us. That's the whole point. That's how they get their jobs. That's how the House has 400 and some members, I think it is, and they get that from the people. The people vote for these people, vote for our representatives, and they go to the House, and they are supposed to represent their district, their area, their people. Okay, um, they work for us, plain and simple. So if they're not doing what you want them to do, write letters, call them, and then if they still refuse, then vote them out in the next election. I mean, it's that simple. That's how it works. But if the House proposes a bill and they pass it, then it goes on to the Senate. Now, the Senate is supposed to vote on the bill that is passed by the House. Okay? The bill, the exact bill, word for word, action for action. Okay? Now, what happens is that's not how they do it. The Senate gets word that the House is going to pass this bill, so then they start working on their own version. And then what happens is you've got two versions of the same bill. Okay, now yeah, they get together and they have a joint committees and they hash it out. But here's the thing: when they do that, that bill changes because you got to, the Senate's got certain things they're looking for, the House has got certain things they're looking for. That bill changes. Okay. And what you don't hear about is that when that happens, that bill is supposed to go back to the House and be passed with the changes. Okay. Then that becomes the new bill. Then that bill would go to the Senate. And if the Senate decides, they pass it. Okay. That's not how they do it. Okay. And then, of course, now the Senate can also propose their own bills. And if it passes the Senate, it has to go to the House. Vice versa. The House has to vote on the same bill that the Senate passed. They don't do this. Okay. Very rarely do they do this. And even when they get together and they get a joint bill, like that, the House has passed a bill, the Senate sends senators over, the House and they discuss it and they change the bill. That bill should by law, by the Constitution, go back to the House and be voted again. Okay. Then, if it passes again, then it goes back to the Senate and the Senate has to vote for it. Okay. That's how this is supposed to work. Okay. The House is in charge of your budget. Okay. The Senate approves the department heads for the legislative branch. The reason they do this is it divides up the power. You have more people deciding the budget, so you've got more people that have ideas to put in there. Okay. Um, Now, both sides have to pass that budget. Both houses have to pass the budget, but the House is in charge of it, if that makes any sense. Okay. The same as the Senate is in charge of approving, like the Secretary of State. We've seen this playing out over the last few weeks. And we've seen politics play way too much into this. Okay. The people are either qualified or they're not. Okay. I don't care if you don't like them personally. If they're qualified, then you need to approve them, plain and simple. That's the whole thing. We don't hold up. They're not supposed to hold up the government from being able to function by holding up the Secretary of State or holding up the Secretary of Defense. Okay, it's just not how that works. But we see them doing that. We see them holding it up and playing politics with our government. So after, and again, this is a quick and dirty run on the Constitution, and a quick discussion of each of the branches. Now, I'm not, like I said, I can go in depth in this uh, even more. My brain will start to become mush. Your brain will start to become mush. Um, but it's things that we need to discuss. It really is. We need to know about these things. We need to talk about these things. Now, after both houses have passed, both parts of the legislative branch have passed a bill. It's still not law, okay? Still not law. Till that man that lives at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue puts his signature on it, okay? And once he puts his signature on it, then it becomes law. Then it falls to the judicial branch to interpret that law, okay? Not the senators, not the House. It becomes the judicial branch. The president can't is not even supposed to say this is what this law means. It goes to the judicial branch. They, when it comes up in front of them, when somebody files a lawsuit about it, or it comes up in a trial, then at that point, then they make their decision. They interpret. Okay. Now, the executive branch. The executive branch is where all of the different, um, the EPA, the Treasury, all these people, all these different organizations. I mean, that's really all they are. Um, become they fall under the executive branch. Okay, so he appoints the leaders, he directs them, all of that. Now, you remember what I said about how something becomes law, right? Okay. The Both houses of Congress have to pass it. The same law. They have to pass the same law, word for word. And then it goes to the president to become signed into law. Okay. So let's just deal with the EPA, okay? And it's just the quickest, easiest one. Well, I mean, you got the FDA too, okay? They, the EPA and the FDA, we'll stick with the EPA because it's an easier one to deal with. The EPA do not make laws, period. None. They don't. They can't. They're because number one, because they're not an elected official. They are appointed by the director, the leader of the EPA is appointed by the president. Okay, he's not elected. That individual is not elected. So, having not been elected, they don't make laws, and they just hire whoever they want to be a part of the EPA. Um, Perfectly, they're right. That's fine. Okay, but they do not make law. They recommend to the president that this should be done. That's their entire goal. They are supposed to just recommend actions to the president. Now, the president can also propose a bill, but he can't present it. He can propose a bill, but he can't present it to either house of the legislature. Okay. He has to get someone in one of those two houses to represent that, to present that. Even though he is the one who originated the bill, he can't present it. Okay. Does that make sense? He has to get like say, he wants, he wants to say that the color blue is now the color green. Okay. So he wants to pass a bill. He wants to write that into law that blue is now green. Okay. So he can't go to the Senate, on the floor of the Senate and say, I want you all to pass a law to pass a bill that says that blue is now green. Okay. He can't do that. He has to go find a senator and talk to that senator. And then that senator will present the bill, will present that blue is now green. And then all 100 senators have to vote on it. Okay. And then after they do that, then it's got to go to the House. And after the House passes it, then it's got to come back to the president for him to sign it. Okay. Quick, funny way that can be done. But the EPA cannot and do not make laws. Okay. They make recommendations. Now, their recommendations can be passed into, can be made law by either the House or the Senate picking up their recommendation and writing a bill for it, and then it going through the whole process and then passed into law and signed into law by the president. Okay. But the EPA doesn't make laws. Okay. But this is not how we do this because we have allowed these organizations to run unchecked. Okay. The EPA says there's too much mercury in Lake Superior. Okay. And they issue a fine. They say, if we catch you dumping this into Lake Superior, then you're going to get a fine. That's not a law. They can't do that. It's not a law. You can dump as much mercury in Lake Superior as you want because it's not a law. Okay, and I haven't looked at law. I mean, it could be a law. Oh, I'm using this as an example. Okay, so EPA doesn't write law. So they can recommend to their heart's content, but until somebody makes it a law and the president signs it, makes it a bill, and then the president signs it into law, it doesn't matter what they recommend. Okay. That's how this works. but we've given these organizations too much power. We've allowed them to do it. And this falls squarely, okay, on you and me, okay, because we haven't called them on it. Be like, wait, there's no law for that. There's not. So take your fine and shove it, okay, until you get a law passed, and then we'll follow that law. But you got to do it the right way. You can't just say, hey, because if you follow like the EPA, you'll notice that there are trends depending on who's in charge of the EPA. We can't have trees cut down. It, deforestation tears things up. I'm not for or against. Okay, this is an example. Okay, so don't be getting all hostile. I'm just using examples here. Um, but that is one of their things, deforestation. Well, then, we've changed presidents and we got a new EPA director, and he's like, man, cutting trees is good, but we're not going to have uh, gasoline powered vehicles. It's not your business, bud. I mean, you can recommend to your heart's content, but until somebody passes a law the proper way through the House and the Senate, they have to be the same bill, and then it has to be signed by the president. Well, it's not a law. So, you can tell me that my gasoline powered vehicle is bad for the environment. Okay, great. I listen to you. I hear you. I hear you. But you can't make me get rid of it because it's not a law. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. So all I'm trying to say is we have got to, as American people, we've got to take control of our government. Okay. I don't care who's in. I'm not saying this for who's in the White House now or who was in the White House before. Okay. Because, and this is why I say I'm a constitutionalist. None of them do it right. Okay. None of them. So let's go to this executive orders that these presidents pass, these presidents sign. Executive orders. It's the same thing as the EPA. It's not a law. Everybody's throwing a fit about all these executive orders that they're signing. It's not a law. Now, I did hear the other day, and it actually made me feel good about this. The current president made the comment that he's signing these executive orders to try to force Congress to address it, to pass a law, to write a bill for it so that he can sign it into law. Excellent. Because what happens is we as American people, because we're not educated, and that falls back to our education system because we try not to, they don't really want you educated. Okay. The government, the people in power don't want you educated. The reason they don't want you educated is because uneducated people are a dangerous people. Why are we dangerous? Because, because we know what's supposed to be right, what's wrong, and we're like, all right, that's not right. You can't do that anymore. But if we don't know, then we allow it to happen. Here comes the EPA. Okay. Here comes executive orders that we think, and both sides. Okay, this is that fear mongering thing. Both sides bring in, wow, how dare they sign that? That makes, that's going to make people, it's going to be dangerous to minorities. It's going to be dangerous to women. It's going to be dangerous to white guys that are over 50. Um, you never hear that actually. I'm a white guy over 50. I'm just saying, I mean, personally, I think my age group and my, you know, anyway, having a little fun here, okay? But we all, both sides are like, oh, he wrote that into law. That's law. That's so wrong. That is just, it's not a law. Okay. It's not a law until it goes through both houses of Congress and they pass it. The same bill, mind you, the same bill. And then the president signs it. Okay. It's not a law. It's just not. Now, we'll address a few things that's going on right now. Yes, he can, the president can cut funding to things. Okay, he can. That's his job. He's the executive. He's the boss. Okay. If he finds out that, Joe Blow over at the Nissan dealership is not selling Nissans, but he's selling Toyotas, well, he can, okay, because Joe Blow works for him. Not, it's not happening. Okay, you're not wasting the money. He can do that. He's allowed to do that. Even if Congress passed a budget, he can still cut it at some point. Okay, he can do that. It's legal. He's allowed to do that. He's the executive. Okay, but that doesn't mean that because he does it, that he's being mean. Okay, just means he's doing what he thinks is right. Okay, and if you don't like what he's doing, there's phone numbers you can call. There's emails you can send. Be polite, be nice, and just tell them what you think about it. It's okay to do that. You can disagree and be nice about it. You can disagree and be polite. It's not that hard. We've missed out on that. But he can't. Now, this is something that can't happen. He can't appropriate funds for things without Congress's approval. But he can kill it. He can stop it, but he can't take it there. Okay. And, there are several other things in the Constitution. We'll bring up a couple more. Cong- uh, Congress, the Senate mainly, has to approve any treaty that the United States enters into. Okay. The Senate has to. So we'll go back to President Clinton. Okay. When he created that NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. Okay. It was a treaty. It's illegal. We've been operating since Bill Clinton on an illegal treaty because it was never passed by Congress. It was never okayed by the Senate. Okay. It was a treaty because it changed things. And it was, yeah, he can recommend it, and that's great. That's why he stayed away from treaty. It's a North American Free Trade Agreement instead of North American Free Trade Treaty because that's what it was a treaty, but it was never legal. Okay, because Congress never okayed it. The same way that during the Vietnam War, because Congress, the Senate, is the only one who can declare war for our country. Okay, the president has to ask the Senate to approve for us to go to war, to declare war. Okay, we fought several wars without them actually being declared. They were undeclared wars. One was Vietnam. It was never declared a war. And that's sad. It's very, very sad because we lost thousands, 50, I want to say 56,000 service members in a war that was undeclared. The same as the Korean War was undeclared. The Korean War was what they classified as an action. Um, we got into the Korean War because of, you guessed it, NATO. Um, so United Nations, actually United Nations. So this is why these organizations are so dangerous. But that's another whole topic and argument and blah blah blah. Um, the Senate had to approve us to get into NATO. They did. That's why when Wilson, because Wilson during World War One wanted to create the League of Nations, and our Senate wouldn't allow us to join because it was a treaty. They said no, which is a great thing. It's not wrong. Um, Probably should have said that with NATO as well, and the UN. Um, but here we are. So this is just a quick rundown on it, and I'm sure that I have missed a. Well, I know I have missed a lot of things, and I've abbreviated all of it. But that's why, if you follow me on Facebook, you'll notice that I ding both sides. I don't play favorites. Yes, yes. One side really makes me mad, but it's not so much their policies, it's their actions and their attitudes. Okay. I don't like a bully and I don't like a whiny person. Okay. I don't like either one. And I dislike them both equally. I do not like a bully. I was bullied as a kid. I do not like a bully. Okay. Um, and because I was bullied, I learned to just suck it up and deal with it. So therefore, because of that, I do not like a whiny person. Okay. So because of one action and multiple actions from multiple people while I was growing up, I've learned to be like, you know what? If you're whining, I'm not listening to you. If you're a bully, I'm not listening to you. And if you're a bully and you're dealing with and you're messing with somebody that I love and that I care about, that's not good. That's not good. That's just not. And if you're somebody I care about and you're whining, that's also not good. That's also not good. Um, but I just wanted to take a little bit of time to just talk about a few things. And like I said, I'll probably put this on my personal YouTube channel as well and maybe convert my YouTube channel around a little bit into sort of a podcast, sort of just me talking about stuff. Um, but if you have some ideas of things you'd like me to talk about, uh, put in the comments. I'm posting this on our, Jessica and I YouTube channel, Aaron and Jessica, um, and I'll also put it on my Facebook page and various places like that. But just kind of wanted to share this with you all, some thoughts. Like I said, I may end up converting my personal YouTube channel to this. Got to figure out how to log on there. I haven't been on that. But my personal YouTube channel has a lot of videos of me reading books and um, chapters at a time and whole books. And also in there are some videos of me reading the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Um, so if you're interested in those, look them up. Um, but that's all I've got to say right now. And we'll talk to you later. Hope you all have a good day. Hope this kind of, I really hope that this is something that you all will like and enjoy. Um, And, like I said, if there's other things you'd like me to talk about, just put comments in there. It may take me a little bit to get to that because I may have to do some research on it. But I'm not afraid of research. I love teaching, I love learning. Uh, So let's do this. Talk to y'all later.